So, you want to buy a WJ Grand Cherokee. Well, what should you look for? What should you look out for? Well, let's start with the motor. This is a 2000 model Grand Cherokee Laredo with a 4-liter. Nothing special about it. On these motors, the injector system gets hot enough that it separates unleaded fuel and basically vapor locks, turns, and all that fuel sits there in the combustion chamber unburnt when you shut it off, and you have to sit there and crank and crank and crank. So there's multiple ways to fix this. One of them is insulating the fuel rail and all the fuel injectors. Another one would be in between cylinder 3 and 4, which I'm glad I don't have this problem. In between cylinder 3 and 4, in the head, there is a problem with the machining for the heads. The wall will split at the exact same spot on every single one from about 2000 to 2003 or 4, and it'll do the same thing as a blown head gasket. Another thing, in the engine bay, there's only a couple things to look out for in the engine bay. The head being one, the fuel injectors being one. I believe, to my knowledge, that would be the only problems you should watch out for. These motors are actually really easy to work on. I know for sure when you replace your spark plugs and you've never worked on one of these before, they are right here, and these are 13 millimeters, and there's 4 of them. You pull them out, and whenever you put them back in, it's always a good idea to start on the back and push the boot onto the spark plug one by one and make sure they all click. Now, let's move on to the body. Paint fades on these bumpers. It's a plastic bumper. What are you going to do? If you don't have the painted bumpers, you're screwed. Right here in this fender well, if you decide to go 4-wheeling in a 2-wheel drive or one with blown shocks, and this is really for most cars, you're going to rip out all this plastic, which I've already done. Let's move on to the doors. Window regulators are a very common problem with WJs. In fact, mine for this door is on my front porch. When I got this vehicle, it was already out, so I don't know if it was faulty or they took it out for some reason that wasn't related. So they'll fail. Another thing is, if you have aftermarket keys and you've got your door card and your key works for your ignition, every time you unlock it, you're going to set off your alarm. Speaking of keys, this cylinder lock, this ignition cylinder right here, has a tendency to give you trouble. And by trouble, I mean you put your key in. In fact, I can probably demonstrate it. Let me find a key. And when you're going to try to start it, and you can see, you'll have to wiggle it. Now, this could be two reasons. You need a new cylinder, or you need to program your key, but it's most likely you need a new cylinder. Let's move on to the next thing. Foot on the brake. This truck's off, and I can do that. Neutral safety switch on a 42RE, which this truck has, two-wheel drive, is known to fill up the plug, which mine does it a lot, will fill up with automatic transmission fluid, and you'll lose your reverse lights. And this can be something else besides a neutral safety switch, but it's most likely related to that. But these problems aren't that big of a deal. But the neutral safety switch on a 2000 with a 42RE is the old style that looks like a coolant temperature sensor, and it's on the driver's side and not on the passenger side, like you would commonly find online. Now, they're not really that hard to take off. I believe they use anywhere between a 20 and a 24 millimeter socket to come off, and they're like $24. A couple things you probably didn't know about your truck. Now, most vehicles, if they've got plastic cup holders, you can take them out. Some people did not know about this. Some people still don't know. I haven't cleaned that out. That's previous owner stuff. This one's secured down with a screw, if I'm not mistaken, in the center of it. Another problem in the interior while we're in the driver's seat is the air conditioner and the heater vent doors, or the blend doors. I'm not going to mess with that job. If you've done blend door jobs, then you know. Another small detail, if you nitpick about these things, I'm sure this is just because something isn't secured right, but now let's move on to, I guess, a trick, but most people that own these, if not everybody that owns these, knows how to do it. I believe that's an original storage for the jack. I know that should be the original jack. You pull up this strap on the bottom, and then you see this lever, and you pull it forward. You take these out, but this is step 2. You take them out, you push up, and you take the headrest out. And then you've got 6 feet of storage, 6.5 feet of storage. Let's move on. Transmission. The 42RE is, if I'm not mistaken, the lowest transmission you can get. Lowest grade transmission. Lowest level. Let's move on to the back. The cool thing about a WJ is they integrated the tire storage in the floor instead of hanging under, so it can get grabbed by something. Now, this does mean that the fuel tank is smaller and hangs lower than most. On a Laredo, you have a 6-disc CD changer from the factory. I don't have that 6-disc CD changer. This is now individual tool storage and random, it's just storage. You have power outlet, 2 of them, in fact. You have these little hooks, these little spots to hook things. The next thing we can go to is if you do not have reverse lights. 2000 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredos do not have fuses anywhere for this. It's starting to rain, so I'm going to hurry up. But let's get under the truck, and I will show you. Okay, give me just a second. There we go. Let's see, let's find it. Okay. In the middle of your screen is the plug for the neutral safety switch on a 42RE. You pull that out, wipe the plug clean, and that should fix it. This will be the second time I will have had to do this. Now this is just due to lack of maintenance. These seals on the back on the tail of the transmission, you can tell mine needs to be replaced. Not a hard job. Let's move on. Rain is starting to pick up, so I need to hurry up. Okay. This may be just due to lack of maintenance from previous owner, but I will show you how my hood opens. Stick your finger in there, if you can get it in right, and pull to the driver's side. So, when I first got this truck, because of that and another problem, my hood stuck up about an inch. Now, when you do not have a door card, and this should be common knowledge for anybody that has a vehicle with these kind of controls, if you do not have the driver door card, you cannot control your windows, you cannot control your power mirrors, your heated mirrors, and many other things. On older vehicles, and I've noticed this on Fords, Chevys, anything with power seats, that's a lack of maintenance. These motors have not been replaced. So let's move on. Okay, so if you do not have reverse lights, check your bulbs first, then check your neutral safety switch plug or your neutral safety switch itself. So the next thing we got to go to, and it's the last thing before I start this thing up and take it for a drive. You can open this window. This button is a makeshift button from the previous owner or from the company that repossessed it. Inside, there are two ways these things go out. This panel, there is a switch in here. You have to take this whole panel out and buy a switch from Amazon. It's not a car kind of switch. It's weird. So, and I'm trying to really hurry up because it's starting to really rain. So, that will go out and you'll have to take it out, bust the rivets, and put a new switch in, possibly drill it in, make a new mount for it, because they don't sell them. This button can go out. I had to fiddle with this button. Sorry, I didn't have it in the frame. I had to fiddle with this button for a day to figure it out. So, now, let's come inside. Do I have my keys? Yes, I do. Let's take that flash off. And I haven't had this vehicle long. I just took it on a 250-mile round trip. And when I first got it, the place I got it from thought it was left rear door open. By the way, the cool thing about these is they've got that. I think that's just the coolest thing ever, especially in 2000. I know it was around for quite a bit before that, but so this truck has Just stubbed my toe. Sorry. This truck has 165,000 miles exactly. 2 doors open. Oh, it's the left rear door. And when I got it, it had 163 and a half 163 and a half miles. So, washer fluid low, perform service. I'm not too sure what the perform service means. At first I thought it needed an oil change. And when I did the oil change at 610 miles, it went away and then it come back after I started it back up. Let's turn this off. Put the heated mirrors on. Let's see. So, let's go for a ride. Show you how this thing runs. I've got a bad radiator. I've got a leaky radiator. So, I've got to figure that out. Starts up pretty nice. Idles. Now that squeak you're hearing is the power steering pulley. It actually has dry bearings. So, a couple things you probably don't know. You pull your light handle out and you have fog lights. So you pull it directly out, you have fog lights, and you can see the light come on. On the highway, with stock tires, stock size tires, 35 air, 35 PSI in all the tires, windows up, you'd be making anywhere between 15 and 19 miles per gallon, and that's what I see. On that 250 mile round trip, I saw 3/4 of a tank going 70 to 80 miles an hour. They're pretty good on fuel efficiency, being a 6-cylinder. In today's standards, that's average. That's on the low end for possibly 4 cylinders. I mean, 4 cylinders have always had high gas mileage, but anyways, these trucks have a rear windshield wiper, and you see that right there. You push it forward, and you can see it in the back. And it has 2 modes, random, and just full on. That's what I'm going to say, random and full on. Okay, so, like I said, let's take it for a drive. There's not much to point out about these things. These are 21-year-old trucks, and if you treat them right, they'll last you forever. I've seen these go upwards to 300,000 miles. Which is actually pretty good, especially for the transmissions they had. They share parts with Dodge. They have a lot of Mopar parts in them. So the neutral safety switch plug, actually, if you have the one on the passenger side, the plug comes into the engine compartment. So let's take a drive for, say, mile, maybe half a mile, show you how this thing rides. I've got all 4 bad shocks and moderate tread wear. You can see it wobbles around, but with new shocks it won't do that. These things are notoriously top heavy. Any SUV is, though, but these things wobble like Ford Broncos. Another thing, and I forgot to point it out, is the fuel pressure regulator. On a 99 is when they changed the design. In 98, the fuel pressure regulator was on the fuel rail. In 99, they switched it over and it is built into the fuel filter. Okay, let's turn that up. And what is that? You see that too, right? There's a person in a golf cart in the rain. Let's go take a right here. But anyways, these 4 liters don't sound bad with a glass pack. They're not gonna sound as good as the 4.7. If I'm not mistaken, the 4.7 had aluminum heads and a cast iron block. The casting on the head for the 4 liter from 2000 and 2003, the reason they crack is because the casting was not done well enough, meaning the casting was not thick enough in those cylinder, like on the wall. So we're going 35 miles an hour. You can see it does actually just fine. We're running at about 190, but that's just because of my motor specifically. And you've got plenty of visibility for these trucks. You know, it's a ginormous truck, but you can see all around you. There's tons of glass. And these had if you had the 4x4, they had like 4 different types of 4-wheel drive systems. But these are good trucks even in 2021. You can find them you can find mine for $2,700. That's right in the middle of what everybody else is asking. You can find them for $1,000, but for very bad condition. And you can find one for not so great condition, one that isn't as great as mine. There's actually one that's on Facebook Marketplace that isn't as clean as mine with higher miles. In fact, 220,000 miles for $3,500. But depending on the condition, these go for about $1,800 to $4,000 on NADA and Kelly Blue Book. So the Black Book and the Blue Book. They have really well done interiors. They're pretty much captain's interiors. They're fully electronic, so you can slide it forward with the button, you can raise it up with the button. It's got lumbar support. They don't have armrests. In fact, you pretty much share an armrest with your passenger, which would be your it would be the cubby box and the center console, not cubby box. Hey, there's another Jeep. So, let me pull into this Dollar General, and I think this is where we'll end it out. But if you're looking for a Jeep, a 4-liter is a good choice. 4.7, it's got more power, but aluminum heads are not something to look for. Oh yeah, forgot about that. I've got a little pinhole in the airline for my brakes. These have, on the back side of your steering wheel, on both sides, these have buttons, I'm guessing for the radio. They've got cruise control. That's about it. there's not much else to say. I mean, let me know what you think about these trucks. That's my honest opinion, is in 2021 they're a good truck if they're kept maintained and kept up with. This one has everything that works. Literally everything works. So, let me know what y'all think. Like and subscribe.